record real quick. Live. And then, oops. And then people should be filtering in. Oh shit, not RimWorld. Fuck. Rechange it to art. Squishy Puff Dave, hello. Dream Cartographer, hello. They say ahoy and greetings. And it is with, people will probably be filtering in as we go along, but it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce my former professor of fiction, who I still consider my current professor, because I will occasionally send you long texts saying, look at what I did, sir. Aren't you proud of me? Welcoming back Pinckney Benedict to the program, to a different program. So welcoming him for the first time to a program which is nearly a copyright infringement of a previous program that we worked on.
Luckily, I don't really believe in copyrights where in good shape.
That's true. Yeah, you used to say that to us all the time in the MFA, like actually.
I mean, it's, copy anything you want. And then, don't be stupid.
Right.
Disguise your work. But, you've all been doing that in school anyway.
Right.
You just Googled whatever, shit you were supposed to write an essay about. And then, went through and search replaced.
Yeah, I certainly did. Yeah. Oh, Pinckney's very quiet.
Anybody who has access to GPT-3 or to even AI Dungeon, if you ever write an essay again.
Yeah. They're saying you're very quiet, so let me fix.
Oh, I am?
It's not your fault. It's my fault.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Always. All right. Try speaking now. How do I sound I sound fine, right? Everyone?
Okay, I am speaking now. Now I am speaking. I am saying things. I'm talking right into the microphone.
Yes, okay. It seems as though that may have fixed it. Okay, good. All right.
You're the problem. Okay, good.
Yeah, I was the problem. As always.
I'm pointing that
out. All right, so to probably to the new people who have yet to have met you, I guess it's probably worth doing some brief introductions. You were my professor of fiction at Southern Illinois University during my Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing program. You and I still a tad quiet. Okay, I can fix that. You were my thesis advisor. And passed me miraculously, and then
stunning. Well, we had to get in you somehow.
Yeah, that's true.
If we didn't pass you were just likely to hang around more. So.
Yeah, another year. Yeah, in the old dirty Dale, and then let's see. So you've been a professor of fiction at Southern Illinois University for what, 14 years?
My 16th year.
16th year. Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was at, but I've been teaching for about 35 years.
Yeah.
Teaching fiction for about 35 years, but I've been at SIU for 16, which is twice as long as I've been anywhere else. Like,
oh, wow.
The longest gig I ever had before I came to SIU was 8 years, because I just can't bear to be in the same place for all that long.
Yeah, right.
But, and my son graduates this year, so it's starting to feel like itchy time.
He graduates with his bachelor's this year?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. Congrats, Cleveland.
Yeah.
For those...
I mean, you may have to go a semester longer because he's doing a double major
Okay.
and a minor, I think. But yeah, and you were one of his first teachers.
Yeah, I was. I was his English 102 teacher. Now, for those of you who thought that you felt pressure... Imagine the first day when I walked into class and I saw Pinckney's son sitting in the front row. I was like,
That's
fuck.
another though. The semester before, Mandy actually flunked it.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. Now that is pressure. I thought I had felt pressure.
Another one of my thesis students. I remember the day she came into my my office and she was like, "Listen, I don't know how to say this, but like, I think I have to flunk Cleveland. You deserve to fail." She said, "Yeah, he absolutely did." I said, "Fuck his ass." You think I'm going to object to your flunking someone who deserved to fail? Like, that's.
Yeah. Doesn't make much sense, right? Yeah.
I'm not going to fight that. Jeez. Like, my whole pedagogy is, based around. Although I don't really fail people officially, what I do is let them know that if we weren't just a diploma mill, I would have failed them.
Yeah, right.
Like in a real world, I would have failed them. But given that, we just grind out MFAs without any real regard
Right.
to whether they're the masters of anything.
Right.
I mean, and you're one of the people who, if we were a real school, like if we were really, if we only passed people who had actually mastered, even a small aspect of the fine arts, you're one of the people who would have actually passed.
Right. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that go through the MFA who just like, they're not leaving because the school needs teachers and and it doesn't really matter because the degree doesn't really mean much. So
it's goofy. Like,
yeah.
Master of Fine Arts really sounds good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a terminal degree in our discipline. It's like as soon as you get your MFA, you're my equal in terms of
knowledge.
Like official, like official, credentialing.
Right.
I mean, you don't have the books and stuff, but you've got the same degree I do.
Right.
And the idea that I share that degree with these semi-literate morons who I myself have empowered just means I understand exactly how much the degree is worth.
Right. Yeah. Well, I can tell you where it's worth less, and that's in Germany, where they.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
No, it's worth. Yeah, they look at it and they're like, "What is this? Why did you bring this?"
That's good. Why did you bring this? But our people are getting jobs out of stuff like when they put the the podcasting stuff, Blanket Fort Radio Theater, when they put the 360 stuff and the VR stuff. That's on our graduates' resumes now. That's what gets attention.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's ultimately what I had learned when I was going through the MFA was it doesn't matter that I get the piece of paper at the end. What matters is that I make a good relationship with my professor or my professors, and that I like learn as much as I possibly can from a writer who is 100% guaranteed better than I am. Right.
Exactly. I mean, and that's really MFA programs are really like. I don't know what term to use, but like they're like matchmaking programs between mentors and apprentices.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because the way you learn an art is not in the classroom. I mean, that's just silly.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to learn art the same way you learn, I don't know, some dumb shit thing. And so all that is like it puts you in the same room with me
right.
or whoever. And if you can prove to me that you're not, just some burping moron,
right.
then I'll work with you in a mentor-apprentice relationship.
Right.
Everything culture is passed on cultural is passed on master-apprentice.
Yeah.
You are not educated into pretty much anything worthwhile in the conventional way we think of education, which
right.
is this, I puke information and you eat up my puked up information.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a bankrupt system everywhere is proving how badly flawed it is
right.
in producing citizens, right?
Yeah.
It can probably produce decent like assembly line.
Yeah.
Although they'll all go crazy after 20 years of that.
Yeah, I mean that's the weird thing about like modern day education, right? Is this sense of like, oh well, you go to these classes and it's like we're McDonald's burger, right? And it's like, okay, here's the buns, and then you put the meat, and that's your science, and then you put the cheese, and that's your math, and then you put the ketchup and the mayo on it, and it's like, oh, and there you go, it's complete, and it's like, okay, well, you just kind of slapped it together.
Anything to do with human nature.
Right.
Right. I mean, it just and it's all based on people will cite studies, and then you go, well, has anybody ever replicated their studies? And they're like, no, in fact, they're unable to replicate those studies, but we still think these are really important principles.
Yeah.
Because the principles happen to fit with their kind of social ideas, cultural
Right,
ideas,
right.
political ideas, right? And conformity is really, really important to academics now. And one thing our system does really well, and I hesitate to say, of course, that it was imported from Germany in the 19th century. But one thing our system does really, really well is produces at least the performance of conformity.
Yeah.
Right. People aren't actually the same, although they are crushed down into very similar packages. But I mean, it produces conformity in something like the way the prison system produces conformity.
Right. Right.
No, they're institutionalized people. I mean, my dad was on the parole board for the state of West Virginia. He was actually chair of the parole board for the state of West Virginia for some years when I was a kid, and I used to go around to the prisons with him. And you meet the cons, and they're exactly like our students now. They don't meet your eye, and you know what I mean. And they're really just, and it's not dumb. It's not that they're dumb.
Right.
They're perfectly rational way to maintain your sanity in a deeply repressive and conformity enforcing
Environment. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean, you just you do what you have to survive. You make sure you join the right gang.
Right.
You
Right.
join the biggest gang that will have you.
Right.
Right. I mean, I might as well just be teaching in a prison system.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's I exaggerate, but only slightly and only for effect, right?
Right.
I mean, like, because I mean, it's it's a very pleasant prison for me.
Sure.
I get to live in my own house, and but it's been a real education. Being at SIU, then having my son go to SIU.
Yeah.
I've got pretty good experience of almost every aspect of the school at this point.
Right.
And it's not just SIU.
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
And SIU in some ways is doing a better job of avoiding it than other schools, simply because we're out of the mainstream. So
Yeah.
a lot of the craziness doesn't arrive here for until 10 years after it has destroyed Yale or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting too is this sense that, like, I mean, you and I talked about this a lot when we were both there, was that, like, right now we're kind of Peter Baelishing our way through SIU because there was just so much chaos at the time that we were there. And it was like, oh my God, we can do all these things. And, like, I mean, this whole idea, this whole writing education via video games on Twitch and Itch and Discord was birthed in that, in that university environment. But I think that in a way it's kind of doing what it's attempting to avoid the pitfalls that I think you and I both saw in the academic system.
No, exactly. I mean, I have real terror. I was in a meeting the other day, where we were talking, and again, we've been talking about this for years, 2 years now, about our partnership with SIU Press, becoming an indie game publisher, but a peer-reviewed indie game publisher. And of course, anything that gets in any way, like upwind of academic bureaucracy, just every meeting is like, well, let's just table this for now.
Right.
Like on whatever, and you're thinking, okay, now let's take a vote. And they go, let's table this for now, and we'll get back again for discussion in a couple of months.
Like a couple of months.
And so one upper administrator, who will never see this, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
But still, said, like, he was like, well, it was the first time he'd ever talked to me and and Amy and, that kind of thing. And he was like, well, I've just Googled the Digital Humanities Lab, and why don't I find a web page for it? And I was like, because we don't exist. That at some point we will exist,
Right. The second you exist is like a horrible problem.
Yeah, we're just done. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say something like, "Can we have a Twitch channel?" And they'll go, "Well, we'll kick it upstairs, and
In 3 to 6 months,
some third provost is, willing to sit down and talk it over with you, and nobody knows who has the authority to grant that. And if you try to host it on the SIU website, it'll take, you know what I mean? And we don't have the server space, and you're, well, God." Right. So the thing you do is you're just like, okay, everybody in charge is interim,
right.
So nobody, like, say they're mad at you. Okay, well, an academic mad at you is just hilarious.
Yeah, right.
And and then like they're going to be gone pretty soon anyway, and they can't do anything serious because they're all just interims, and they're interims year in and year out, and so yeah, you just do what you want.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's ultimately what became our thing, was just like, whatever, like, let's just buy shit, and then we'll ask for forgiveness later. So we'll just buy shit and we'll talk to low people.
Become like a lab.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have to do all kind of like we would have to pass some
safety,
human experimentation, examination on doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it can remain unofficial until I retire.
Yeah. And just produce as much cool shit as you can.
All you need is money, right? I mean, that's, we've got plenty of donors. I just got a call to meet with a donor later this week, yesterday, and I've got a couple of donors who are old friends and former students of mine coming in February. So
yeah,
we've got money, but nobody watches how we spend it. So
right. Oh,
that's the situation to be in.
Speaking of money and nobody watching how to spend it, I do have a question. So I know that some people in our Discord may be looking to apply for MFAs sometime in the near future. And SIU's...
Our anti-commercial right there at the beginning might well...
Oh, I mean, here's the thing, though. Like we said, going to SIU, you don't go to SIU to go to SIU. You go to SIU to meet a professor who's, like, top of their field and work with them as closely as you possibly can, right? Like, as much as you can.
And really, that's the way you should go to any MFA program.
Yeah, right.
Pick it based on, like, is there a prof whose work you really like, who doesn't seem like that person would probably be an asshole in person, because that's a real problem.
Right.
Right. Because a lot, well, whatever. I'm not going to get myself in too much. Or pick an MFA that's in a part of the country where you would like to go or where you feel you can be productive.
Right.
And, like SIU, we're out here in the middle of the country, and there's not much else to do. I like it. I like being out in the country. I grew up in the country.
Right.
I got a dozen acres with a pond full of fish, man. I'm beautiful. But, but if you can't stand living in a small, southern Illinois town in a pretty red part of the country, it's not going to be much fun for you around here. And university, it's a decent little university town, but if you require a lot of restaurants,
they're all closed.
A lot of closed restaurants.
Yeah.
But
I would say that ultimately,
the university takes a lot of advantage.
Yeah.
The university charges a lot of fees, right?
Yeah, lots.
You think, oh, I'm making, whatever. Like, it's not much money, but for a single person in a fairly cheap town, it's not a bad job.
It's livable, yeah.
Yeah, it's livable. And, but then all of a sudden the fees show up and take like a third of your money. And it's for stuff like this empty bus that roars around town 24 hours a day with nobody on board. I often end up kind of behind this bus, and it's going out to like the equine center, the farm, and it's just hilarious. Like, it's me and this bus alone. And and it's empty, and it kind of goes around to the horse barn.
I know exactly what bus you're talking about too.
Oh yeah, and it's just jitney, but they charge you like $1,000 a semester for that.
Right, I know, it's crazy.
And for your free tickets to the basketball games and the football games, and we got a horrendously bad football team.
Yeah,
like I feel like I would be pretty good on our team.
You would.
And I'm just a big fat old guy, like but I'd be I'd be a pretty good lineman.
You could get in the way.
Oh yeah, getting in the way is my so it's from our appointed rounds here today. But yeah, if folks have questions or want to I'm Pinckney at siu.edu, Pinckney at siu.edu, and if folks want to get in touch with me about applying to our program, you have until the end of January.
Yeah. So
our program, and if anybody who's listening to this stream or watching this stream is going to apply, let me know, because that's the kind of thing that will count with me.
Right.
Is if you're on this stream, then I'm pretty confident you're you're at least moving in the direction of being the sort of person we wanted SIU.
And that's why I bring it up, right? I mean, at the very least, like I would say that these people have a much more vested interest in becoming better at the art of storytelling than maybe a lot of other people would.
And you're actually active, right? Like I couldn't, if I put the call out, right, and said a graduate of this program, and a recent graduate of this program, successful graduate who really integrated himself into the digital humanities stuff, and I are going to do a stream about narrative gaming, which is what we're going to be studying this semester. If I put that out to the 10 students in my graduate workshop, would any of them show up? Probably not.
No, probably not.
Right, and like this is an opportunity to. They want the school to educate them into a professional life as a writer, and that just can't happen.
No, it can't.
Like, nobody's ever going to force you into being a writer. If you're not willing to go, okay, this is something that might be tangentially related to what I'm interested in and will help me build relationships in the program I'm in, and therefore I will give up the required hour or whatever to be there, then, if you won't do that, then, sitting in a classroom with me with 10 other people is not going to help, because
right.
I don't require anything, really.
Right. Yeah, it's just like...
Yeah, the more you write, the more I have to read. Right? I mean, so I determine my own hours, and so professors who are like, well, you have to write this really long paper. I'm like, oh my God.
You have to write a half-page paper.
I'm like, if it's bad, the shorter it is, the more likely you are not to really make me angry.
Right.
Like the nothing worse than a lot of pages of bad stuff. And if something's good, it doesn't have to be particularly long.
Right.
Right? Like you give me 3 good pages, am I gonna, beef about, oh, you didn't do enough work this week?
In fact,
absolutely not.
I think I'll actually like 3 good pages more than 50 good pages.
Well, yeah, I mean, because most things are too long anyway in academia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think games are kind of the same way, right? They want to be able to advertise, we have 60 hours of gameplay. Well, they don't say, and 40 of that is in the middle of the game, and it's just fucking grinding. Right?
Yeah.
So the first 10 hours are really great, and the last 10 hours are really great, and the middle 40 hours is just you picking up fucking bottle caps, right? And trading one weapon for a slightly better weapon, going, oh, the crafting system, right? And they're not doing anything new in the middle. And most novels I read, and almost every novel by a young novelist, is the same way. It's got a really cool idea. It's got a really cool opening. You're really enjoying yourself, and then it just starts churning.
Right.
Right? And it churns the same elements over and over and over again until it's within sight of land. And then the writer gets, interesting again and daring again, because the writer goes,
oh, it's ending.
Yeah. And so they bring it into a good landing, and the right people die and stuff like that. But you're like, well, so why did you make me labor through? And I just don't. Like,
right.
I read once the book starts churning, I just start skipping ahead, right? Like nobody's paying me to read like whole novels.
Right.
I know a lot of people think that, but that's just like nobody in the outside world is going to do that.
No.
And so the minute a book starts churning, I just boop 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 into it until I hit a passage where it's not churning anymore, and that's really obvious. Like there are different characters involved. People have gotten divorced, or they've gotten married, or people have died, or people have betrayed other people, and you're like, oh, okay, something big happened. I'll jump back a few pages, catch up on what that was, and then move forward. But don't ever just churn the same goddamn elements. And that's what games do. And they go, okay, this time it's different when you're fighting that robot because this robot has more guns than the robot that you fought before, and so do you, right? And I'm like, what? And so it's really weird. Like, as I've gained, power, whatever you want to call that in life, like money or status or credentials or whatever, like my life has actually gotten easier because my enemies have gotten dumber and weaker. And so I'm like, geez, I could only sit in a room with 2 academics, 30 years ago, but now I can sit in a room with a dozen of you fuckers, and just laugh it off and go, oh, okay. Like, yeah, you can keep saying all that crazy shit, but it's never going to happen.
Right.
So anyway, all I mean is that's what I mean by churn, is that you may sort of jump up what you think of as the intensity. But in fact, all you're doing is saying, okay, you're bigger and your enemy's bigger, or you're bigger and there are 2 of them now.
Yeah.
And that's not change, right? That's just like amplification. That's just, I'm turning it up to 11 now.
Yeah.
And it's a mistake that games make, but it's also a mistake that
writers make as well. Yeah.
Writers make all the time.
Yeah.
And much better. Like, why aren't there more hour-long games? Like, I wish there were 60-hour-long games for every 60-hour game that existed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's kind of a rise of short games coming because they're just so pleasant.
Well, I just read this morning, I'm trying to remember, some company just got $50 million, venture capital funding to create a no-code game engine, right?
Oh, yeah.
So something more accessible than Unreal or
Unity. Yeah.
And so, of course, the time of the indie game is coming. And, of course, they'll be like short stories.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like the rise of the short story in the early 1900s.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct. And there will be an Atlantic magazine that's the publisher of, like, the best short stories. And then there will be like Weird Tales, which is, Strange and Outre, hour-long games and stuff like that. There will be magazines, just publishers of these games. And that's what I want SIU to be.
Yeah.
Like, I want us to be, to publish really smart, short games.
Right.
A game that, doesn't have to be this, Lord of the Rings adventure. Like, and that's the problem. Like, recreate Lord of the Rings, like, maybe just recreate, I don't know, the Battle of Helm's Deep or something. Right. Right. And you can actually sustain it.
With the narrative beats, yeah.
Yes, and it does, right, exactly. Not just, okay, it's 100 of you standing on the walls and 500 of them besieging the walls.
Right, because Helm's Deep is not even remotely about that. Helm's Deep is about, the incredible, like, withstanding of heroes under great pressure, the moment in which Gandalf the White shows up, that's what that scene is about, right?
Exactly. And so, like, but not, and Total War, for instance, does that kind of thing. I mean, does the sort of massed battle pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But not every game, like but don't take a literary game and turn it into Total War. Like, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
But neither does my guy. I think we talked about this in the other stream, didn't we? That we're like, because we played the newest like Tolkien murder.
Oh yeah. Tolkien Murder Simulator. Yeah. We did that with Neophyte. Yeah.
Dude going around like just murdering people, right?
Brutally. Yeah. For fun.
And just to pick out, and we're like, this is literally anti-Tolkien. Like, this is like this is what Tolkien, reductio absurdum.
Right. I mean, it's like the antithesis of what Tolkien's trying to say in his novel. That's what the Shadow of War games are. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just churn because I mean it's an interesting churn, and the way the enemies, you all educated me, that the way the enemies are created, and I mean there's weirdness, right? Like your dead enemies come back and shit like that.
Yeah, right.
That's just but so it has interesting things, but they're not Tolkien things. They're
right.
not. And they would have done well to think about that.
Yeah,
right?
Agreed. Yeah, it's not in the spirit of Tolkien. Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, but I think you're correct that the time of the indie creator in terms of games this is going to be like the early part of the 20th century was for the short story.
Right.
Right. And that there are going to be people writing Tarzan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and people, Ambrose Bierce, and I mean, you think of all those, O. Henry, right? I mean, literary culture has become so corrupted that the O. Henry Awards, which is an anthology of the best fiction of the year, and I've been in the O. Henry Awards, I don't know, 2 or 3 times,
mm-hmm.
right? It's not the best fiction of the year. It's the best fiction of the year by people the editor of that anthology knew or wanted to promote.
Right.
But like O. Henry couldn't get into the O. Henry Awards now.
Right. It's named after him.
Right? Everybody would just go, "Oh my god, it's so mechanical." But they're really satisfying stories.
Right. Right.
I mean, Ransom of Red Chief or whatever. It's like a hugely satisfying story. And maybe it seems a little bit naive, but like contemporary people calling people who lived through the Civil War or whatever, World War I, naive, just cracks me up.
Right.
I'm like, you've never been out of school your whole life. You're like 40 years old. You have a man bun, and to those of you with man buns, like I have no hair at all, so feel free to make fun of me, right? And I'm like this weird, soft creature, and you're calling these people who lived through like literally Civil War, who lived through literally like the trench warfare of World War I. You hear that about C.S. Lewis all the time.
Right.
Oh, he's so nuts. I'm like, dude killed people.
Yeah.
Like,
so naive.
He treats war in such a naive way. Say people who have never touched a gun.
Right.
Yeah, he's naive. You're the really smart, experienced one.
Right.
I mean, academia is weird because it's like the people with the least experience are the people who get to critique people who actually know shit.
Yeah, it's nonsensical.
Like, people talk to me about my teaching. I'm like, I've gone through a lot of shit in my life. Like, I'm not, I've done a lot of different jobs. Anyway. Well, so let's play the game.
Yeah, let's play. It's okay. I enabled it. I always get so excited to talk to you, so I'm just like, yeah, just keep going. But so while I'm hoping that while I make sure that we have everything organized, that you'll give like a brief explanation of what an agnoresis is so that everybody knows. Because I learned an agnoresis from you, and that was the theme of this jam.
As you know, brief is not really in my skill set, but I will do what I can. An agnoresis is an aspect of Greek tragedy. And it's also can be a comic effect. I can't think of comic anagnoreses in Greek drama or poetry. But I'm sure there are some, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's an Aristophanes expert in the crowd who can enlighten us. But all it is self-recognition, right? Recognition of the self, and we often think of it as kind of a development or a change, but in fact, it's simply realization of who you've been all along. It's revelation, epiphany But it's not external epiphany. It's that the character, comes to understand the character all along has been what the character hated or feared or believed others to be. So
Right.
in contemporary psychology, it's just, what do we call that? Projection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, people who are like, chronologically bigoted go, oh, the Greeks, they lived, I don't know, 600 or 700 years ago. Yeah, 3,000, but whatever. But, but like they weren't dumber.
Right.
They knew everything about human nature we know. They just didn't have people with PhDs saying, well, that's projection.
Right.
But that's really what it is. And the great contemporary or modern, I guess, example of Agnoresis I can think of is the ending of the novel I Am Legend. And spoiler alerts, if you haven't seen the movies, the movies
Yes.
sort of capture it, but nobody captures it the way that novel does. So cover your ears if it's a spoiler alert for a novel from the 50s. But by Richard Matheson, who's one of the great storytellers of the 20th century, and there are lots of things Richard Matheson wrote that you don't know he wrote, but you know them. And he was great at Agnoresis, but the end of I Am Legend is his great Agnoresis,
Right.
which is where the character of Robert Neville, who's been a vampire hunter, right, and kind of zombie hunter, but they're called vampires in the novel.
Yeah.
Well, they're really what we would conventionally now call zombies.
Right.
Well, there's kind of vampires who are self-aware and zombies who aren't, but they're just gradations of the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Which defies the American desire for like classification and clarification. Like,
Yeah.
we want to know, is it a zombie? Because we know how to kill a zombie, shoot it in the head. Is it a vampire? We know how to kill that. Like, we're really good at killing, and so we like to put things in neatly killable categories. And I say that neither as praise nor condemnation, but this is recognition of
Right.
nature as an American. I'm like, I walk into a room and I'm like, how would I kill everybody in this room? Like, do it. But I'm like, what if all these professors and graduate students got stroppy?
What if they did get stroppy? Yeah.
How would I put them down? Anyway, so besides my own psychosis, and maybe I will have an Agnoresis here and realize that I'm what a monster I am.
Yeah.
Right, but that I Am Legend, I mean, he realizes at the end, I'm actually the monster.
Right.
Like, they're all scared of me. They tell their kids tales at night about how I will come and get them if they're not good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All along, I thought I was killing the monsters. I'm actually the monster who stalks the day, which is their night. I'm the monster who stalks the day and, and kills them and frightens them and, whom they hate and whom they have now
Right.
hunted down. And he glories in it. I mean, that's the other great thing about that book is there's not a contemporary writer would go, oh, I've realized, I'm the problem. And he's like, I'm the last real human, you freaks. It's great. Like,
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, he may be wrong. Right, we may believe he's wrong, but he doesn't have to. Agnoresis doesn't have to be like, oh, finally justice is done.
Right. It's not a lesson learned.
Right, exactly. And it's like Walter White has an Agnoresis in Breaking Bad, and he goes, oh, I'm not the nice, mild-mannered, faithful husband, good father, friendly teacher I always thought I was. I'm Heisenberg. I am a bad person, and my skill is at doing something perfectly that is deeply immoral.
Right.
And he doesn't reject that. I mean, at the end, he kind of does, but in what way? And again, spoiler alert for Breaking Bad, but he kills everybody.
Right.
Right? Like, including himself, basically. He just murders everybody because the only way to sort of clean his record, and I'm not sure whether that actually counts, is to just kill everybody he's been associated with and has empowered.
Right.
And so we say, okay, but Breaking Bad, how about literature? Well, like Camus' The Stranger, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember the final passage in that, right? As he imagines, he imagines himself passing among the hordes of people, and the phrase that I always remember I hope this is a good translation, is, the howls of execration, right? That, and that's exactly the ending of I Am Legend,
Right.
right? I mean, it's the same ending. It's like, oh, finally, I've realized who I am, and I'm the creature they all revile, and knowing my own nature is better. Knowing my own nature and being hated for it is better than living a kind of conventional life and not um, knowing my own nature, or not being able to
Right.
display my own nature. So
Right.
that's Agnoresis, not brief. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
it's okay.
Yeah, it's just realizing, and the term. I mean, when we think of the classical Agnoresis, of course, it's Oedipus.
Yeah. Oedipus. Yeah.
Oedipus Rex, right?
And the
Is
outsider.
well, yeah. I mean, H.P. Lovecraft's The Outsider is the perfect Agnoresis.
Thanks, Chris.
And the thing is, like, in something like, what's that?
Oh, I said thanks, Chris, because you reminded me of the name. Chris is in the chat.
And the Outsider, I mean, the thing about the Outsider too, and this is another point about Agnoresis. I mean, a great Agnoresis is really surprising, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like a twist or a hook that means the next time you read the story's not worth reading.
It's not cheapened. Yeah.
The end of The Sixth Sense, right? Which is the thing that makes The Sixth Sense great in some ways, right? I mean, I watched The Sixth Sense, and again, spoiler alert for The Sixth Sense, but it's been out long enough.
Yeah.
Is Malcolm has been dead the whole time.
Right.
And he didn't know. Well, like the first time I saw that movie, I didn't know it either. Like
Right.
lots of other people figured it out. I did not. I'm not very interested in like figuring out movies.
Right.
So like I was just like, holy shit. It made me rethink everything in the movie and repicture all those scenes that they show that demonstrate the Agnoresis.
Right.
Like, oh my God, how did I not see that? And I'm like, did they trick me? Are they showing me different scenes, right, from what they saw before? They do that, for instance, in The Conversation.
Right.
The Gene Hackman movie, The Conversation.
Oh, okay.
His Agnoresis is a cheat. Because the sound they play back to him, right, when he finally understands that he's made himself accessory to murder, is a different sound from the one he recorded. And I love The Conversation. I think it's a great movie, but it actually depends on a cheat of real Agnoresis. Now, you can argue that cheat comes out of his POV, and so the fact that we hear something different actually just means he hears it differently, and we're deep at his POV, right? But that's still that's dicey. That's like an academic argument.
Right. Yeah.
Artistic argument, because anyway, yeah. So Oedipus Rex, he's like, who is causing the plague in Thebes? I'm going to hunt down. It's a detective story, right? And he finds out, oh, the person I've been hunting for all this time is me. And what that means is the only really good detective story is the detective story that ends with, who have I been searching for all this time? Oh shit, I'm the one who's at fault.
Right.
Right. But Agnoresis, as in The Outsider, is not always like a shock. Yeah. Like in The Outsider, if you don't understand pretty well what he's going to see in the mirror, right, by the time you finish that story, you haven't been reading carefully.
Yeah.
Right. You're prepared for that Agnoresis.
Yeah, there's a sense of inevitability to it where it's like,
Right.
oh, yeah, it's coming.
But what it does is it means the next time you read the story, or the next time you see Sixth Sense, like Sixth Sense, I've seen it many times since that initial surprise. And it's really a good movie. Like, I like it better now that I know what the Agnoresis is. And the movie does not cheat, right? That is not a movie than like the arguably much greater Coppola film, The Conversation. That's not a film that cheats on its Agnoresis.
Yeah.
It really plays it. It plays it straight throughout. So anyway, so that's Agnoresis. It's just it's a really effective element of story. And story is always about revelation anyway.
Right.
Right? And revelation, we just mean a stripping away of the mask. Yeah. And that's all stories are doing. Stories aren't like oh, all these things have happened and now this is the situation.
Right.
Stories are like, all this happened in order to reveal to us and to the characters what everything has been, what the truth has been all along.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really how every good story works. Is like, oh, it's not okay. Everything was cool, and now everything's shitty. It's I was ignorant of how shitty everything was,
And now,
and so everything seemed cool. Now I know how shitty everything is, and so I know the truth, and it's not cool, and it was never cool.
right.
Right?
Yeah. That makes sense. Cool. I'm glad that we went over that definition, because I think it helped people clear up in their minds, because we went back and forth on it for a while, because I'm not as good of a teacher as you are. So, but I feel like that helped.
Yeah. You haven't had tragedy in your life.
That's true. Yeah. I've only experienced like no tragedy at all. All right.
Anti-tragic. The like the fate I would have predicted for you is so much worse.
Oh, it's the complete opposite. Yeah.
I'm like, damn, this guy's like your biography would not be good literature.
All right, so we're going to start with Two Links this game. We're definitely not going to get to everybody's games today. I mean, we weren't going to before our big come together moment where we get to
Come back or not come back. Like if it means you'll actually get through all the games, I can even go away right now.
No. You're coming back as much as I can get you back. So
I'll come back like that. I love this. This is if my workshops were like this, I would be the happiest teacher on earth.
Yeah, good.
So anyway, but go ahead.
We'll get them. Require them to submit. I have an idea. I'll talk to you after the jam or after the stream about it. But anyway, so this is Two Links' game. He actually won the best overall category, number 1. There was only 5 entries this time around, though, so everybody's a winner in a sense. Everybody made top 5.
Winner, even if you just submit, like learning to put your work in play makes you a winner.
Agreed.
9 out of every 10 people who call themselves artists never do anything with their work.
5 out of 6 MFA students don't actually finish the one thing that they were there to do, and they had 3 years. All right, so this is Observer and the Observed.
A good title.
It is good. It's a good title.
I would probably be either Observer and Observed or The Observer and The Observed.
The Observer and the Observed, or
I would either use both articles or neither article.
Okay.
But I wouldn't use one article. But maybe it's reflected in the game why that's so. But
yeah,
I love this art style.
it's so good. Two Links and Valcoy, his partner, have really gotten. Oh yeah, no text was the other requirement. No text in the game at all.
I like the way they're kind of dancing together.
Yeah.
I would like that if when I entered a room, and there was a woman in there, she would just dance with me.
1 sec. I'm gonna turn down the game just a little bit because I feel like it's stepping on your sound.
Yeah, we don't want that.
So she's in here as well.
Do that or someone very like her.
Yeah.
I like the little dust clouds he raises as he walks.
Yeah. So we went into the TV. Now we're a baby. Jesus, Two Links. Now he's a teenager, presumably.
Yeah, see, this is a whole life we're seeing play out in front of us with no words in this, like, pixel graphics.
Now he's like a young adult. Now he's working. Yeah. There's a dog. There's animals on the paintings. And strange purple skin.
Got that parallax thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he managed to, do the raster lines on the TV.
Yeah.
But, subtly, but you're in a story space.
Right. Yeah, now we're in the special world, right? When we went into the TV, we're in the special world.
We crossed the threshold into the spirit world. You should do a threshold crossing.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Just games do that a lot.
Yeah.
Different levels. It's always a threshold, but the storytellers don't understand how important thresholds are.
Right. Ooh, now we walk left.
Look at the swinging light bulb.
Yeah.
Now we're zooming in. The camera work is.
There was a noose too.
Oh, was that a noose? I'm sorry, I thought it was a light bulb. Oh, look at the pictures upside down.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and the noose is gone now. It's
Oh yeah. Just a rope swinging. Now there's an animal. I saw this animal.
It used to be up on the the animal used to be up on the shelves.
Yeah, right.
He was there all through his childhood and boyhood and stuff.
Interesting. So interesting. What was the Agnoresis there? The Agnoresis being something to do with the animal that I assume we missed.
Realizes what? That he's actually dead or something like that. Yeah.
He realizes he's dead.
Right, there's a noose, and then there's not, and then the noose is gone in some way.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just assuming he hanged himself, and then eventually, his neck and the noose both rotted and fell away. But
Yeah.
maybe that's correct. And that the displacement of the dog is it's an objective correlative.
Right.
It's not. It isn't a symbol, nor is it even really a clue. It's just an objective correlative. It's this thing that has been in place his entire life is now out of place.
Right. Oh, interesting. Huh. Cool shit.
Yeah, I actually like that it's ambiguous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, because that's very literary. Yeah, is to say something significant has changed, and what are there people in the chat who have ideas about what the Agnoresis was?
Well, Two Links actually just spilled it. So he said you guys are very close. The whole building plus watching his life in the TV mirrors how life flashes through moments before death.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Yeah, I buy it.
That's very nicely done. Yeah.
Good stuff. It's crazy.
Word to Two Links is, as an artist, don't ever step on letting the audience speculate about your work.
Yeah.
Even if they're wrong, because they're not wrong. They're doing is sort of telling the story to themselves of the story you told.
Right.
Right. And the temptation to try to tell people the story you thought you told is very, very strong. And many, many young and even old storytellers will go, well, like William Golding, totally, when you read William Golding's essay about Lord of the Flies, he completely goddamn ruins Lord of the Flies. like you're just like, oh, that's what you were doing? Well, that's really dumb. And you just did it in this essay, so why did you bother to write that whole frickin' novel which has tied people up in knots for decades? Right? So my speculation about Lord of the Flies is way better than his explanation, even though he's really smart and really good writer.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather sit around and discuss with Dylan what Lord of the Flies is like than have both of us read that essay and go, oh shit.
That sucks. But the thing that is interesting though, and because somebody noted in the chat that a lot of the games in this particular go around are pretty vague, and I think it's kind of an interesting thing to do because I realized after I did the jam that the no text plus an Agnoresis is quite difficult to do. Like it's already pretty hard to do an Agnoresis, and then not being able to do it with literally text.
Yeah, Sophocles used a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, a ton. Yeah. So I realized that, and I was like, that's really hard.
I'm glad you did that. Like that. You're taking away a lot of crutches. Right.
That otherwise, yeah. That students.
The thing I love too in that is the framing device, right? The framing device of going in and watching television. And I like that, for instance, something has changed, right? That the upside down picture, and I would do more like that.
Yeah.
That when the person has finished watching television, so the television watching is actually the sort of present action of the story, and then there's a frame around that in which the character comes in and sits down to watch television and then gets up. And the way a frame story has to work, although most people don't do this, is the frame can't just be there to frame the story. Like what the frame has to do is say, okay, watching or telling this story that's in the middle, that's in the middle of the frame, in between the ends of the frame, has changed the framing character, right? And the way to show that change is by stuff like that upside down portrait,
right,
and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's good. I would also, though, in terms of frame, I would bring the frame back one more time in the middle somehow of
Right.
the narrative.
Oh yes, definitely.
Bring us back to the world where the character is watching what he's watching and indicate that things in his world are already changing due to the fact that he's reiterating all these things for himself.
Yeah, that's a really
Right.
good idea. Yeah, because that's how most frame stories end up working, right? It's like, I mean, like the idea, the one that came to mind the most immediately was Life of Pi, where like they sit down to do the story originally, and then they go into the story, right? They go into the frame or out of the frame, right? No, they go into the frame. How does a frame story work?
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, it's weird because the frame happens after the thing itself.
Right.
Yeah,
but it's framing around the story. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the frame here is the television watching, right? And the story itself is what's on the television.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
So you come back to, and it is, the observer and the observed. And we need to come back from the observed to the observer. And then the question is, I mean, it's like I say, it's a really smart title because who is the observed? Well, you say, okay, it's the person who's on the television set being observed by another version of himself. But in fact, we're observing, we are the observers. We're implicated in the title because we're observing the whole thing.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's just good, smart literary storytelling. And I don't mean literary like with quotes. I just mean it works the way literature works. It works the way
it employs the mechanics of literature.
Right? Yeah, it's just puzzling. But come back in the middle to the person watching TV and show that what's going on around him is that what he's already watched is already changing the world around him.
Right.
And then when you come back to him at the end, change the world in profound ways. And that's, we don't need to know what has caused those changes exactly.
Yeah.
We will understand, we will note or at least sense the changes.
Or infer them. Yeah.
Yeah, watching your own life changes the present moment in your life.
Yeah.
Right? And that's got to be what the story is about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that noticing things changes the world around you, or changes what you understand about the world around you.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully done.
Yeah, it was
really beautiful.
Gorgeous design of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if I could do something like that, I would be so impressed with myself. I would never talk to you.
I know.
You're like, why am I talking to that guy?
Okay, so from what I understand, this game is very dependent on its music, so hopefully...
Sounded acquired, good.
I worry that the sound will step on Pinckney.
I'll just keep quiet until after we see it.
Okay.
How about that? But I will give you another advice from an old writer to a young writer. I assume young writer. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I don't mean young chronologically, but or an emerging writer, someone who's trying to establish a career. Don't ever apologize before you open up your work. Like so many of my students, like right at the beginning of their work, before they read their work aloud, or play something for us or whatever, they're like, okay, now don't hold me responsible for whatever.
For the torture I'm about to subject you to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just pretend that they're going to like it. Right?
Yeah,
No matter.
right.
The thing is, now you've pointed out to me stuff I'm now going to notice, which I probably wouldn't have before.
Right.
You know, it's like walking into a date and going, oh, pardon the fact that I have this big booger in my nose. Like, maybe they wouldn't have figured it out, or maybe they just thought you had nose hair. That's my problem. I got so much nose hair, but it kind of looks like boogers when the up my nose. So, but I don't go into meetings and go, hey, it's not boogers, it's nose hair. Like, I just hope nobody sees it at all. But I know that impulse to apologize for a lack of perfection is very, very strong.
Right.
But you'd have to apologize for everything. And eventually, when you got everything the way you wanted it to be, then what could your apology be for? It would just have to be, I'm sorry I suck.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm human. This is so bad. Right? Like this is not at all what I pictured. Well, that's true of all of us. Like, my stories, you know, my most anthologized story, I would still have to apologize for it by saying, you should have seen what I had in my head. Like, when I started this, oh my God, it was it was just like transcendent. And what you're reading is like a pale, weird ghost/zombie of the thing I had in my head. Right? Because now I can't just go, well, this is bad because I had the wrong words or the wrong graphics, or
right.
I didn't have enough time to do this or whatever. Like, okay, but I don't really care. Like, that's you.
Right.
All I'm thinking is, oh, there's this game in front of me, right? Like there's a cartoon. What is it? That XTCD.
Oh
cartoon,
yeah, XKCD.
Whatever. There's one of those. Yeah, there's one of those that Sarah Gillick sent me. That's this person, a little stick person making a cake, and the cake's kind of shitty and tilted, and has too much icing on it and all that. And the person's like, oh, my cake sucks. Or I guess they're actually kind of like, okay, I like my cake. And then they take it to wherever they're going, whatever party, and they put it down. It's next to this really beautiful tiered cake, like this gorgeous cake. And they're like, oh, my cake sucks. Right? I'm such an idiot. People are going to hate me for this cake. And then a person at the party comes up and goes, wow, 2 cakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. Like, this is putting a cake in front of me.
Right.
And what kind of cad would I be? Like, if somebody goes, like, that free thing that you made to entertain and delight me and then gave me for free so I could be entertained and delighted, which sucked.
Yeah, right. It wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect. Like, you don't even want me for a friend or a fan.
Right.
If I would, just present what you have, and sane people will react to it in the knowledge that a person made it. So probably big chunks of it are going to suck. Right.
Because we're humans.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, sorry.
No, it's all good.
I'll keep my mouth shut. Okay, I am not hearing the sound, I have to say.
It's probably because I can't share the sound in Discord with you.
So should I just let me boot up the Twitch channel?
Yeah.
I'll just watch it on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
What is the name of your Twitch channel?
It is oh God, hang on. I'm gonna have to just message this to you, I think.
Give me or WhatsApp.
I'll send it to you in WhatsApp.
Because I'll pick it up on my phone.
Yeah. It's twitch.tv/Wanderjahr Games, right? I should already be following you anyway. Yeah, you should.
Oh, I am. There it is.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead.
All right.
Just watch it.
All right. Don't forget your lunch, I imagine. frustrated. It's kind of just interpreting emotion as you go through it, right?
Lunch, I imagine.
Oh, she's crying in the bottom right corner. Apparently we got a bug. So says the developer. Oh, thank God you can hit shift to sprint.
This is the developer. Thank God you can hit shift to sprint.
Ah, I'm trapped. Let me out of here. Okay. Okay, we're back in the apartment building now. Am I supposed to have something in my inventory to the people in chat? I do not go back to the apartment. Man, I didn't see where else I could go. Oh, probably there. Deliver the lunch? Deliver the lunch. Oh, I'm good? Okay, alright. Find the place of work. I'm playing all these games blind, so I don't know the easiest routes to the various places. Oh, there we go. Flash. Lunch. Exclamation point. So she's not crying anymore. I brought the lunch. Now she's happy. Can I take the lunch bag?
Oh, my goodness.
There was a dog barking. Do I go back to the whoa. I walked into the wall. I do not go back to the apartment. I gotta find the dog. That's why there was a bark. It's hard. I mean, I'm realizing, like, you know, Oh, there it is. I'm realizing how difficult this is to like actually tell a story with literally no text at all.
Yeah, that's good.
Whoa. I just leapt over that building. Where are you, dog? Oh, there you are. Haha. Did it bite me? Now there's no sound. Now do I go back? Whoa. North. Oh, little asshole. Okay, now we're coming to the crack in the wall. It's actually kind of interesting. Like to force you to kind of explore around in the space. And then you start to make sense of these different places. There's no sound here whatsoever, so. Oh, I will pump up the volume. So, cursing, I imagine. Love. Music. Cursing minus ear person? You cannot hear, maybe? It's not cursing. It's like muffled sound, maybe? Yeah, okay. Interesting. Huh. Okay, so she's deaf. Right? Am I understanding it? Can you hear me? Yeah, I put it together that it was can you hear me? After Toaster pointed out that it's not cursing, it's like muffled sound. I don't think you should be displeased with the final result. I actually thought that was pretty good.
I don't think so either. I mean, I'm stunned that somebody would be upset with that as the result of a game jam.
Yeah, it's really good. I thought the story was like relatively followable. Actually quite followable. The only thing I didn't quite understand was like the brother and the lunch thing. That was like the only thing that I was wondering, like what was it, right? But otherwise, like I thought it was a really interesting narrative that actually branched out and became more about more than I thought it was going to be, which was like a cool surprise. and had an interesting.
And it's a quest, right? I mean, it works exactly the way quest stories have worked from, at least the Odyssey.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean it's a normal quest story. Because what it is like she goes out of her bedroom. She sees that her mother forgot her lunch, so she runs off to bring her mother her lunch, and then she hears a dog bark, and so she tries to figure out where the.
She acquires, she has items. She acquires companions. That's just how quests work.
Right.
It seemed to me like a really, straight ahead good quest story.
Right.
Like,
I also.
You pull down the scope instead of a golden fleece and a dragon you have to kill. You have to find, you have to find the dog and bring the lunch. Like,
Yeah.
that's a.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a different coat of paint. That's it's the same thing. It's the same car, but
Now it's just a matter of adding, more difficulties, more puzzles, but also more rewards. Like,
yeah.
more assets to pick up. Usually there's a mentor character. More companions.
Well, and one thing that I had thought of too was to have the dog in the apartment in the beginning, because the dog is kind of just like appears and she's like, I want to find a dog, and if the dog is in their apartment at the beginning of the story and then she hears the dog bark and she realizes, oh, it's Fifi or whatever.
Because otherwise, why would you follow the dog?
Yeah, why would you follow a dog? Yeah.
Right, unless you have a prior relationship with the dog.
Yeah, and so looking for the dog is like, oh, very interesting, and then the dog leads her to this, maybe this old location that brings back a memory about, her going deaf or whatever it is.
Since this game is early in the arc of its development, you for quests, of course, you can look up Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces. That's everybody knows that, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. But what I would actually suggest you look at, just for a variation on that, is a thing called Prop, Propp. A guy named Vladimir Propp. Propp's Morphology of the Folktale, it's called. And what Propp has done is laid out the 31 elements. And this is kind of what Dylan is saying when he's saying, oh, the dog has to be set up in order for us to want to follow the dog, right? Is if you look at Propp's narrative, particularly the early narratives, and a narrative is just what Propp called the smallest, like divisible chunk of a story, right? And it's things like the absentation, right? Which is the parent goes away, the child in the folktale is left alone in the house.
Right.
Boom, you've got the absentation, right? Then you've got the the thing the character's supposed to do, but there also has to be an injunction, right? And the injunction is don't do something. I mean, it can also be do something, but generally speaking, we'll say it's something like don't leave the path, or don't follow the dog, right? Or don't go into that crack in the wall.
Right.
Or what have you. And we know from that, of course, the character is going to do that because that's what makes a story.
Yeah, don't go into that blue room.
Right. The character is given an injunction and then breaks that injunction. And that's when we enter the story world.
Right.
I don't think yet this piece has a moment when we're entering the story world. Like, it's all in the same world. There's no moment where we go, oh, we're not just watching a little girl go around this town. This is larger than that.
Yeah, this is about something more than right.
There are monsters here, or there are risks. There are this child. This is not just like this couldn't have happened yesterday or happen tomorrow, right? Stories are things that could only happen today, right? And there's no sense that this isn't something she maybe did yesterday or something that she might have to do again tomorrow, right? That this has just gone so differently from any other time she's ever done.
Right.
right? And that's what makes a story is Dylan is taking his mom her lunch, and instead of just finding her and giving her the lunch, which has happened a million times, he's offered crack by an anthropomorphic wolf, right?
Right. Right.
And
Naturally.
And anytime I see a crack in a wall in a game, I'm assuming it's crack.
Yeah.
But right. But and this day of all days, right? This is the only time he's ever, his mom always says, "Don't take the crack from the anthropomorphic wolf."
Right.
And he does it on this day, and that just changes everything.
Right. Yeah. It's also, it's the kind of thing where like she brings the lunch to her mother and her mother's not there. Right. Like today of all the days is the day her mother isn't there. Where's my mom? Oh, she didn't come into work. Why didn't she come into work? Now we're talking about something that is a special worldified.
Quest becomes, right, this small quest becomes a greater quest, right? And the stakes are heightened, and it becomes a detective story.
Right. So now this little, yeah.
Yeah. Look, there's the dog. The dog has blood on its muzzle.
Right. Is that my mom's blood?
I'm not criticizing anybody for not having done that. But that's how the story. Well, Dylan, I've got a bolt, man.
It's okay. No, I was just about to call the stream myself. So we'll come back next.
Why you wind things up?
Oh no, it's all good. I mean, you can head out. But basically, so next Thursday we're going to go over the other games. Sorry we didn't get to as many, but Pinckney and I had kind of a big preamble.
Not so much next week, but
yeah,
it's good to be back. Like it was fun to be back.
Oh, it's such a blast.
In this environment.
Such a blast.
Right.
So yeah, next week we'll do the rest of the games and oh, you can go, Pinckney. I'm just going to wrap up with them.
Not on Discord so much.
Okay, he's gone. So yeah, sorry I wasn't particularly responsive today. It was more like a matter of. Oh, what, did he say it was his birthday? Or whose birthday is it? Whose birthday is it? Oh, Dave. Oh, happy birthday, Dave. Sorry we didn't get to your game. Or maybe not sorry, because maybe you didn't want it to be today. I'm just kidding. Who wouldn't want that? So I hope that was good. I hope that do these streams feel more informational? Because they always feel more informational to me. Because he knows it better than I do. So I'm trying to gauge interest in that. Because I'll get him back next week, and then we'll do the rest of the games and go on with what we're doing. I can't imagine he's always going to have time to like come on the stream every week, which is fine. But for Game Jam streams, I feel like, I mean, it's like basically free education from a professional writer. I think it feels the same amount of informational. The real engaging part is the conversations you guys have. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I think it's like this unique position we found ourselves in, where we agree about like literally everything in narrative, and then we disagree about a lot of other things, but we completely agree with each other on narrative, right? Like I've never met somebody whose opinions on narrative are literally one for one my opinions on narrative. Yeah, cool. I'm glad that you guys think that we bounce off each other pretty well. Heaps of great little nuggets. Well, the thing that's just like I'm always amazed with Pinckney is just this encyclopedic knowledge of narrative, right? Where he's just like, oh yes, this is like that famous short story from 1883 by Algernon Quaff, and you're like, what? Who the fuck is that? So cool. Well, we'll come back next week. We'll do the rest of the jam games, and yeah, I hope everybody took notes on the things that they found interesting, and I promise, I promise, I will not do a jam that is. I promise, Toaster. I mean, I know a lot of people are like happy about it, but every time I see the Toaster's little comments of like, I really fucking hated this jam. This jam was way too hard. Like, this is bullshit. And I always see them and I'm like, I can't respond, but I hear you. Pinckney is an immortal confirmed, yeah. Pinckney kicked off a bunch of ideas that for the expanded reverberation. Cool, good. So yeah, see y'all next week. I'll talk to you in the Discord as it goes. Was fucking pissed, TBH. Okay. Well, next time you see Pinckney, because apparently you're a minor in creative writing, let him know. Let him know that you were pissed, so that he can then tell me who you are. All right, I'm going to go now. So yeah, see y'all next week. Congratulations, by the way, Toaster, for becoming a minor in creative writing. And good job, everybody. Okay, now really goodbye.